Hi, it's Simon Hobbs here, or Sim, or Simesy, or Si. Today I want to talk about field prefix in Drupal. Something that you can control, but it's not exposed through the UI, is the prefix of the field. So you can see here on the screen, I've got some fields on my article content type, and I have this field summary, which is what you'd normally expect to see in Drupal. And what people aren't aware of is this field underscore is completely customizable. And just to jump straight to where that's customizable, there is field UI config settings, has a field prefix setting, and basically you can make this to be whatever you want. So I'm going to change it to something crazy like this. I'm going to change it to something long because I want to show you something. So let's make our field prefix something long. Let's do a config import and come back to the UI. So I'm in the UI now. That setting firstly. So I've just deleted the field I created because I did a config import. But so firstly, this setting doesn't affect your existing fields. Okay, so you're not going to break any existing fields. They're all locked into the config. It's really about setting that default. And it's about setting a default that you can't easily change in the UI. Okay, so let's create a new field called name, and you can see here that I've got my machine name is something long underscore name. So that prefix is controlling that. So that's all well and good. Let's make a text field, and I need to select a field type. Okay, sorry about that, Drupal. And save that. So now I've got my new field name. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create something quite long, and so this please enter. So this happens commonly on site builds, and really, look, it is what it is. But the problem is when you get site builds that then go into production like this. So please enter your first name here. So someone's put that in initially. It's going to create this really long name, and you can see that it's actually getting truncated at this point. Okay. Okay, so let's go and have a look at what the database looks like after that. So here I've got my database connection, looking in the field names. So it looks like what actually would used to happen with Drupal is this would get truncated if it got too long. And what I think has happened is that some beautiful soul has made it so I can no longer enter field names that are so long that they get turned into hashes in the UI. Just as a quick aside, what used to happen in Drupal is when you would have a field name that was too long, you would have it would actually take part of the field name and it would truncate it. And this meant that the field names no longer matched things like twig templates and other configuration so the field names in the database, and it just reduced the transparency and the developer usability when you're working with Drupal websites. This is just a random article that I found about it. So it looks like that's no longer a problem because Drupal limits the length of that name. So that emphasizes another point that I wanted to make about this field prefix. So let's say if we create a new field and we want to put in something very long. So something long, and then we hit this limitation. Okay. Now, often in field naming, like this is a big part of your developer usability for your team. For you coming back to this website, I've spoken before about this, but this field name can impact a lot of different places in Drupal. It can impact what config looks like in views when you're looking at your views config. It impacts what the name of your twig files are. There's actually quite a lot of things. So in theory, the names that you use for your fields, while they seem to be pretty throwaway, and look, that's just the job of Drupal. It just lets me call shit whatever I want to call it. In practice, you might want to control this name. Now, in this situation now where they've actually limited it to the limit and in column names in tables as well. So that prefix is being quite long is actually really painful. And if it's just field underscore, it's a bit better than that. So, but what if we just made it nothing at all? So let's say if I go back to my field config, and I'm going to do a config import again, so it's going to delete the tables that I'd created before. Okay, so now we go back into our UI. and we're going to create a new field name. So now what we can do by removing that prefix altogether, we have full control over what our field name is, and like a little bit of discord, like a little bit of a reflection on this. The first time I came across this was from a Drupal contributor in Australia, DPI, and Daniel. I saw that in some stuff that he'd built, and I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. But then also you sort of think, okay, is this a good pattern for other people to pick up? What's the implications of this pattern? Because a lot of people think of field underscore as being quite important, important way to identify field names. But if we go and have a look at, let's just have a look at this website, which is actually using no prefix, and let's have a look at what it looks like as a developer, who's come into this website and is trying to work out how it's been built and understand it. So I'm looking at this list of fields, and you can see here I've got my hero field. So that's an image field and a media field, and you can see my hero field's been used in 2 content types. And so having that name hero is actually really quite semantic. It's very readable, and field underscore is actually fairly redundant. So what you'll find is as you dabble around in Drupal, you'll find that not having field underscore does make a big difference. I'm going to show you one of the biggest impacts very shortly. But for now, let's also have a look at the fact that the media image that you've seen on your from the media module in Drupal core, like that media underscore, like it's just arbitrary. It doesn't have any specific purpose. It just happens to be how the module names those fields out of the box. Good or bad, it's identifiable. It's very clear to me that these fields have been created by something else outside of my control. So probably the only significant impact I saw with removing field underscore was in really large code bases. And say you want to find all the examples in your code of where you're referencing a field. So it used to be, we have been doing a lot of this in the past. So say I'm in a preprocessor, I'm preprocessing variables in the node preprocess, ready for the template. So what we would do is we would say field underscore hero and do logic based on that. So that was, in that syntax where these magic getters, that actually, having the field underscore, to be honest, made it actually a lot easier to kind of scan code and see what was custom. However, a lot of these sort of implementations are now moving into entity bundle classes. And in an entity bundle class, hero is perfectly semantic and logical. Like, you know exactly what hero is in the context of a node, because hero is not a generic node thing. So it's actually fine. And we're also getting there's also a welcome emergence of using get, explicitly calling the get method in order to get a field. And when you pass hero into that method, it's actually also like really obvious that that's a field name. So I think with those 2 examples, it's also something where, like, chuck your field underscore away, man. Like, do it and think a lot about the naming of your fields. It's actually really, really satisfying when you get your content model up and running like that. Anyway, thanks.